Okay, and welcome to Christ Media Politics. I'm your host, Robert White, for this edition of the show. I am super excited to do this show today because I don't often get to talk about events right after they happen. My schedule is so crazy that I end up 4 days late to the party. And so I'm talking about something that the algorithm and everyone else has moved on from. So I'm super excited today to talk about today's subject because it's actually super recent and hopefully I can add to the conversation. And with me, my co-host, Warren Reinerson. Welcome to the show, Warren.
Thank you.
We are going to talk today primarily about the big announcement yesterday, last night, more officially, but before 6 o'clock on yesterday, Wednesday, May 20, I think, yeah, it was May
24th May.
24th that DeSantis was going to make his big announcement, his presidential announcement. But before he got on Twitter at 6 p.m. yesterday, there was either leaks or just people already talking about it. So it kind of, the cat was kind of let out of the bag on that one. But then he made his official, coming out party or celebration or coming out announcement on Twitter. And for those of you who don't know, Twitter has what's called Twitter Spaces, and basically it's a where you go on Twitter and you can host a Twitter Space, which is just a bunch of people talking on the platform, and it's just audio only. So last night at 6 p.m. Eastern, I believe, Eastern time, 4 p.m. Pacific? No, I might getting those reversed, but 6 o'clock my time. And I live in Florida, so um he went on Twitter Spaces and he was initially supposed to go on to Elon Musk's Twitter Space and have this conversation and do this announcement, but it actually crashed and because he had so many followers and whatnot, and they didn't seem to have tested this. They didn't really do any kind of dry run through the process before they did this. They just kind of did it for the first time during the when he was actually supposed to be making his announcement. So they had some glitches. The site crashed, or at least the space crashed, and you weren't able to you weren't able to stay a part of the space. You got kicked out. And so they had to restart it on someone else's account that didn't have as many followers so that the system could keep a pace with the amount of people that were joining. Basically, too many people joined all at once, crashed the system. They had to use a different account that didn't have as many followers so that the number of people that joined would slowly grow rather than all at once, kind of like a flood. So that is a short synopsis of what happened last night. Warren, did you get a chance to join in on the Twitter space, or were you able to follow that story at all yesterday?
I wasn't able to do it yesterday, partially because I was working around the time that DeSantis had actually announced. But I did see parts of it later on.
Okay, so tell me what parts you saw, and kind of just give me a quick analysis of what you heard.
Well, it was largely just the part where DeSantis is physically announcing his campaign itself. Um, I've also saw like the audio and visual recording of that particular part of the announcement, and all the bugs and glitches that were happening on Twitter. Now, granted, not going to hold DeSantis accountable for technology failures. Technology failures happens to everybody, so we're not going to use that against him. Um, but even Trump was like kind of poking fun at it a little bit, where he was pointing out how Tim Scott, for those who don't know, Tim Scott, a senator from South Carolina, also announced he was running for president just 2 days ago. Actually, literally the day before Ron DeSantis announced he was running for president.
Mm-hmm.
So, so, um, And I'll be honest, I'm going to give my honest opinion here about DeSantis' announcement. I do look forward to seeing DeSantis as a candidate. I'm not sure if I'm going to endorse him yet, but his announcements, and I'm going to be very brutal here, was a complete failure. It was one of the most embarrassing campaign announcements I've ever seen from a presidential candidate. And I've seen a guy who literally campaigns with a boot on his head every single election. Because
Yeah.
like DeSantis has always been a very charismatic. He's always been essentially like a hybrid between JFK and Reagan when it came to media uh, savvy and charisma. We did not see that from DeSantis. It sounded like he ripped off a script when he was announcing. He wasn't. It didn't sound like he was just taking questions from people. He just flat out said it, and it sounded like a monotone speech you would hear on the House of Representatives. It was not exactly a great start. Now, again, he could change it very late. He could change later on, but still. Um,
Yeah,
um,
I have a lot of thoughts in regards to that. It's a lot actually. So any final thoughts? Because I don't want to cut you off.
yeah, that's fine. Sorry, that's just my quick text. I was saying that I think Santa's kind of when it came to as now is really not big of a deal for the campaign. But when you're trying to get people really excited from it for you, especially when you're a very distant second in the polls for the nomination, it's not a good look.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
it's I appreciate that analysis, and you brought up Trump early on, and he was definitely waiting to pounce. I think he made a tweet about it early on before the Twitter space launched, and he made some kind of snide remark. Um the So here's something for a soundbite. This is a notable point. So if you're listening, you're kind of disengaged so far, take note of this. The only reason that Trump would be going after DeSantis as hard as he is going is because DeSantis is his most formidable opponent in this primary. What do you think, Warren?
that is definitely honestly that is absolutely the case right now. Now, and here's why I'm saying that. If you look at all the, Donald Trump has the lead of over points in the GOP polls, but DeSantis currently is the only one that has double digits in polls. Meaning he had, I think the next closest anyone comes is like 8%. Now that's nothing to speak. At the same time, it's not exactly it's not a bad idea for Trump to try to get ahead of the whole thing right away because even though Trump's lead is very convincing, one of the things you really don't want to do in a presidential campaign, except let alone one just for the nomination, is to get overconfident over because it is very possible that someone could be happy for the nomination and basically take it from you just because when you weren't paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah, keep it humble. Don't overplay your hand and don't get ahead of yourself. Get over what's the phrase? Don't get over your skis or whatever they say. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
it's about humility, and one of the notable points that DeSantis made when in the Twitter space while he was covering a diverse variety of topics and really laying out his platform and how he's going to what he's going to do as president. One of the things that he made a point to, and it was kind of a shot across the bow, it was shots fired at Trump, obviously, as Ben Shapiro calls it, a subtweet. He basically said, this this presidential campaign is not about building a brand. It's not about entertainment. It's about policy and getting things done. And I think that's something that DeSantis can definitely run with and continue to kind of hound Trump on in regards to policies and different failures or perceived failures, because we could get into that because a lot of people want to say that Trump didn't finish the wall. I think you could say that he accomplished more than enough to consider the wall sufficiently built or sufficiently started. But one of DeSantis's things last night was, we're going to finish the wall. So, is DeSantis properly positioning himself to be a formidable opponent of Trump? And was the launch of his presidential campaign on Twitter, was that a fumble, or was that a strategic decision that he made that we can't really appreciate right now because maybe we don't understand the emerging tech and influence of Twitter? What do you think?
Well, I think he is trying to position himself as a formidable opponent to Trump. However, and you might, I also do understand that him putting announcing his campaign on Twitter. Yeah, it does kind of make sense, but it was in retrospect a fumble because it would be a whole lot easy. Because for one, when you're doing stuff like that, it's not like here on Zoom where you can actually see the person's face. You can't really see it what they're doing at all. All you can see is a little picture of them. So what DeSantis should have done if he was trying to announce on Twitter is just do a modified version of his first campaign ad. That was it. That's all he would have. He would have to do, and he would be fine. Um,
Yeah.
I think it was like, yeah, good intention, poor execution.
Do you think that maybe this was DeSantis trying to strategically dodge the mainstream media and not give them a platform, not give them an opportunity to, talk to him because he knows that they are an adversary to him and that they will do nothing but paint him in a negative light? So he wasn't necessarily giving them the opportunity to kind of take shots at him. And so being on this alternative, not really alternative, but this non-mainstream platform and doing the audio cast rather than a visual in-person video thing. Do you think that's a sidestep to the media, and it's kind of, shoving it to the media and saying mainstream, you're irrelevant. We're going to use the tech platform that can reach millions of people, and I'm not going to subject myself to the mainstream media who just want to take me out and go right for the jugular.
Yeah, that is certainly a possibility. Now, granted, I do not know Governor DeSantis personally, so I can't really ask him. But I do think that is a significant possibility of why he decided to announce on Twitter. Which you might, I have no problem with him announcing on Twitter at all. It's just the way that he did it. Like I said, if he really wanted to sidestep the media by announcing on Twitter, all he would have had to do is have like a campaign ad on Twitter announcing he's running for president, and he would have been and it would have the exact same job. Even if he held a political rally to announce he was running for president, basically it would still do the same job because all he would have to do is post the full context on online, and everyone would be able to see it.
Gotcha.
The problem is, yeah, the problem, and with mainstream media, don't get me wrong, I absolutely hate the mainstream media. I think they misrepresent a lot for both Democrats and Republicans. But trying to sidestep them just so they don't. So when doing campaign like launches, no matter what platform you use, they are going to try to lamp past you no matter what. It doesn't matter if you use Twitter, if you use CNN, if you use Fox News, it does not matter. They will rake you through the coals no matter what you do.
Yeah. I tend to agree. And of course, the mainstream media, which is also known as the corporate press, it's a dinosaur. It's dying. And when I see a presidential candidate who I strongly support, I forget how one person put it on Twitter, but basically they said, if he wins the primary, I'm going to vote for him. If he doesn't, of course, I have to, vote for the guy who, beats him, whoever that may be. We all know it's most likely, if he's beaten, it's going to be Trump, to some degree. But we really have to ask the question of electability. Is Trump electable? Currently, he's not sitting in the White House, so you might be able to say, well, based on the fact that he's not in the White House, he might not be, someone that can get back into the White House. But as far as my support for DeSantis goes, I really support his moves against the mainstream media, against the corporate press, because he understands that he can go directly to the people. And Twitter has been in the past described as the town square, the proverbial modern digital version of the town square, where people get together and they talk about issues, and they don't have a intermediary of a talking head or a politician trying to grease their palms. They're actually face to face with each other, and they're discussing the problems, and they're coming up with solutions. And so we see Elon Musk hosting this Twitter space for DeSantis, and a lot of critics have said that this was a fan club meeting. This was a bunch of yes men trying to tickle DeSantis. This was a tacit support by Elon that he's on the DeSantis train and he's no longer Trump. And so I think that as an analysis, the fact that DeSantis went for a form of media that was not controlled by corporate press, the fact that he tried to go directly to the people, and he had a meeting, or a all access meeting with one of the most richest men, most influential men in the country, if not the world. The fact that he did that really takes off the layers and cuts out the fat. And really, it's him talking to the American people and saying, look, I'm coming directly to you, the people. I'm speaking in the proverbial digital town square, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do as a president if you choose to elect me.
Yep. And like I said, I think the intent was phenomenal. It's just the execution was terrible. Um,
Yeah.
Now he could also have had like a sit down one on one with Elon Musk and just record the whole thing and put the video on Twitter. He could have done that. It would have made it a whole lot easier, and we would actually be able to see him being presidential.
Yeah.
The part of the problem is with politics, especially presidential politics, is for lack of a better term, most of it is showmanship. Very little of it is policy. And that's one of the things I'm disagreeing with Ben Shapiro on a bit here. Now, granted, I started disagreeing with Ben Shapiro more on some things, but this is one that I really disagree on. Because if you think about it, Ron DeSantis,
Oh no.
It's kind of like the debate between JFK and Nixon from '60. Yeah, I was saying it's kind of like the debate between JFK and Nixon, where with Kennedy, you could actually see the charisma of John Kennedy and the nervousness of Nixon in that same debate. And that one debate made sure that JFK became the 35th president instead of Nixon.
Gotcha.
Without being able to visualize that charisma, it's not exactly the best look. Now, again, like I said earlier, DeSantis could come out later on, and the campaign announcements really don't matter all that much. Most people don't think about campaign announcements, with the exception of Trump's campaign announcement. So, like I said, I just think that his intentions behind announcing on Twitter were fantastic, and I thought it was a great idea. It's just I really am not a fan of just the end result of it. Like maybe they should have done 3 or 4 different takes of it or something. Because it just didn't work out all that well. Now he also released the campaign ad, which I thought was a little bit better, but still not that great. So
Yeah, a couple points to note here. Benny Johnson was on the Twitter space last night, and I think he was the first person to kind of point out that DeSantis seemed a bit robotic, and so people were starting to call him a Chat GBT president or like AI president, mainly because it was just so robotic. His sometimes some people criticized the way that he opened. It was kind of he was reading a speech, and it was pre-written, and he was just reciting it. And then at other points in time, he wasn't as personable. Then, like you said, the charisma isn't there. Kennedy had the charisma, and that really does take That really does influence it a lot, is the charisma. Now, one critique I have is I really have a hard time with this charisma idea. In regards to, let me just give you a proverbial example. If you hire a plumber to come and fix some kind of plumbing issue in your home, and he comes in and he's doing a backflip and he's telling you how great your house is, and he's just got all of this charisma, and he makes you feel good, and he's a great conversationalist and whatnot, and then he leaves and you still have a clogged drain. Did the plumber do his job, or are we just so wrapped up with charisma that we don't care that the plumber did his job? I would argue that right now we have a venal house plant as president. Before we had a showman as president, and I'm not looking for a showman, and I'm also not looking for a corpse. I'm looking for a nationalist statesman that's going to fight for the fundamental rights and freedoms of the American people. I want someone who is going to fight for our national sovereignty. And I don't know how much I care about charisma. I see everyone talking about it. I see that Trump has a great brand. He has great charisma. He makes a big show of everything. And he's not necessarily the best politician, but he is one of the greatest of all time in regards to brand and charisma, and really getting people just either upset or happy or excited or whatever. He really can bring a crowd to life. That is something that DeSantis doesn't necessarily have in the same way, but are we really going to make that trade-off of, we're going to say that, DeSantis lost the race because of charisma? I don't know that the American people should be so focused on this charismatic personality flaw in a candidate, because I'd rather have someone who knows what he's doing and can fix the plumbing, rather than if he can do a backflip and make me feel good.
Yep. And that's a totally fair assessment. Now, don't get me wrong, charisma is not everything when it comes to presidential politics. I mean, both parties have nominated very uncharismatic candidates in the past. Bob Dole, for instance, Joe Biden, you could argue, is very charismatic.
Yeah.
But when it comes to getting the nomination, you really need to basically excite people in order to not only win the nomination, but eventually win the White House, at least for most modern audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think Ron DeSantis can be a very charismatic candidate, especially when he's in his elements with the press, giving press conferences. But when he's just reading off a speech, when people who can't see what he's acting like, it doesn't come off very well. Like I said at least twice in this thing here, I don't think the announcement is going to be that big of a deal in the long run. After all, like I said, most people don't remember campaign announcement speeches really at all. I think with the exception of Donald Trump's campaign announcement speech, no one really cares about campaign announcement speeches.
Right.
Yep. However, it can be used as kind of an early punching bag for some of the other candidates, and Trump is really taking advantage of that. Now, I'm not sure why the other candidates aren't taking advantage of it, because they pretty much all of them had much better campaign announcements than DeSantis did. Nikki Haley didn't even have a formal rally or anything to announce her campaign, and it still came off a lot better than his.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's probably not going to matter in the long run. I just don't think it's off to a good start.
Yeah, and I appreciate, the candor about that, and the raw honesty about the success or lack thereof, or just how it came across. Now, you mentioned that, people may not remember it as much, and we don't necessarily have a 72-hour news cycle. We have about a 48-hour news cycle. So people are really going to move on from this. And there is the other aspect of this, which is all press is good press. He still is getting headlines. He's still getting attention. He's still getting talked about. His videos are still getting circulated. Everyone is sharing his presidential video. And so he's still a formidable candidate against the most likely nominee of the party, Trump, right now. And
Yep.
so as far as an alternative, as far as a decision, who you're going to vote for, what you want in a person or in a candidate, there's a lot of questions to that remain in regards, question marks that remain in regards to DeSantis. We have to question what he can do, what he can get accomplished. I've heard some critics of him say that, he is such a lawyer and such a politician that once he gets to Washington, he's going to start shaking hands and making deals, and he's going to start blurring the lines on what he said he's going to do.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. Now, I think we should also be skeptical over what type of politician becomes president. Now,